When I got into an accident, my parents wouldn't come to the hospital to sign the consent form for my surgery. My father sent a text that was chilling. "Can't this wait? We're busy right now." Fortunately, my grandpa arrived and took care of me. 3 months later, Karma came around. "Hey, Reddit. You don't really realize how delicate life is until you hear the sound of your heartbeat slowing down on a hospital monitor." That sound, slow, consistent, mechanical, became the beat of my existence. One rainy Friday evening began like any other. I was driving home from my part-time job, tired but content, quietly singing along to a song I can't even recall now. The road was slick, the rain pouring down, and the headlights from oncoming cars blurred into glowing lines. Then there was a blinding flash, the screech of tires, and a thunderous crash. Everything went dark. When I regained consciousness, every part of me ached. My left leg was in a brace, and my arm was wrapped in thick bandages. The sharp scent of disinfectant filled the air. A nurse leaned over me, relief in her eyes. "You're awake. Try not to move too much, sweetheart. You've been in a serious accident." Her words washed over me slowly, like waves crashing one after another. "What? What happened?" I whispered. She explained that another driver had lost control and crashed into me. My car was wrecked. They had brought me in while I was unconscious. Broken bones, internal bleeding, a mild concussion, and now surgery was necessary. Moments later, the doctor entered, calmly explaining everything, what needed to be done, the risks, the procedure. But then he said something that made my heart drop. "We need a parent or a legal guardian to sign the consent form before we can proceed." My parents were my emergency contacts. "Can you call them?" I asked weakly. The nurse nodded and dialed the number from my file. "Hello, Mr. Thompson. This is Mercy General Hospital. Your daughter has been in an accident. We need your permission for emergency surgery." There was a long silence. Then, over the faint speaker, I heard my dad's voice. Calm, distant, almost cold. "An accident. Is she stable?" "Yes, sir. But she needs surgery right away." He interrupted her. "Can't this wait? We're busy right now. We're at a dinner event." The nurse blinked, shocked. "Sir, your daughter." Click. He hung up. I remember staring at the nurse's face, hoping she'd tell me I misheard. But the silence spoke volumes. They tried calling again. This time, Mom answered. Her voice quivered, but not from worry, from irritation. "Oh, for heaven's sake. Can't you just wait until tomorrow?" "We'll come in the morning, ma'am," the nurse said firmly. "Your daughter's condition is critical. We need consent now." Mom sighed. "Then find someone else. We're not available tonight." And she hung up, too. I didn't cry right away. I just stared at the ceiling, numb. These were my parents, the people who had told me they loved me, who raised me to believe family comes first. And yet, when I needed them the most, they couldn't even sign a piece of paper. The nurse squeezed my hand. "Do you have any other family we can call?" My voice broke. "My grandpa. Please call my grandpa." Within 30 minutes, my grandfather arrived. He was 73, his hair white and thin, but he rushed through those hospital doors like a soldier on a mission. He didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. He simply said, "Where do I sign?" Then he sat by my side, holding my hand as they readied me for surgery. "Don't you worry, Pumpkin," he said gently. "I've got you. You're not alone." I don't remember much after that, just his voice and the warmth of his hand before everything faded into anesthesia. When I woke up hours later, I was groggy and in pain, but alive. Grandpa was still there, sleeping in a chair beside me. He'd stayed the entire night. When he saw me open my eyes, he smiled, tired but relieved. "You scared me, kiddo," he said softly. "Don't ever do that again." I tried to smile, but tears streamed down my face. Not from the pain, but from the realization that the only person who truly showed up for me that night wasn't my parents. It was him. Days went by. My recovery was slow and painful. My parents didn't visit even once. Not a single message, not a single call to the hospital. They sent one text from my father, "Glad to hear you're okay. We'll talk when things settle." That was it. I didn't respond. Grandpa supported me through everything. He brought food, sat through my therapy sessions, and paid for medications when insurance wouldn't cover them. He told me stories to make me laugh and reminded me that family isn't defined by blood but by presence. With each passing day, my heart hardened toward my parents. I promised myself I wouldn't reach out until they understood what they had done. Weeks turned into months. I returned to work, still limping a bit, but stronger than before. Grandpa called every evening just to check in, sometimes to tell me jokes or complain about his back. He was my anchor. But then one morning, everything changed again. My phone buzzed with a call from my mom. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, but something inside me urged me to answer. Her voice was shaky. "Sweetheart, your dad, he's been in an accident." My heart stopped. In that moment, everything came rushing back. The hospital lights, the fear, the waiting, and the sound of my father's cold voice saying, "We're busy right now." Yet, despite all that pain, I felt something else rising within me, something deeper than anger. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was karma. As I grabbed my keys and headed to the hospital, one thought echoed louder than the rest. Would I treat them the way they treated me, or would I become the kind of person they never were? I didn't know it yet, but the answer to that question would change everything for me and for them. 3 months later, karma caught up with them. The drive to the hospital that night felt eerily familiar. Same route, same rain, same smell of wet asphalt through the cracked car window. It was as if life had looped back. Only this time, the roles were reversed. 3 months had passed since my accident. My scars had faded, my limp almost gone. But that pain, the emotional one, lingered quietly in the corners of my heart. Now, the people who had once abandoned me were the ones lying helpless in a hospital bed. When I reached the reception desk, I asked for my father's room number. The nurse glanced up from her monitor. "Room 204. He's in stable condition now, but it was a close call." My stomach tightened. Close call. The very words I had heard about myself not long ago. I walked slowly down the hallway, each step echoing off the white tiles. For a moment, I wanted to turn back and leave them just as they had left me. But something inside me whispered, "Not this time." When I entered the room, I saw him, my father, pale, connected to tubes and wires. Mom was sitting by his side, her eyes swollen from crying. She froze when she saw me. "Oh, you came," she whispered. I just nodded. Her voice trembled. "I didn't know if you would." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I looked at the man who had once told a nurse, "Can't this wait? We're busy right now." The irony stung. A doctor entered, surprised to see me. You must be the daughter. We were hoping someone could handle the insurance paperwork. Your father's accident was serious. He'll need ongoing care." I nodded silently. Mom buried her face in her hands. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "Everything's falling apart. I can't manage alone." And suddenly I recognized it, the same helplessness I had felt that night months ago. Karma. It had come full circle. Not as punishment, but as a reflection. Later that evening, when my father finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. His lips trembled as he whispered, "You came." I nodded. "Yes, I came." Tears filled his eyes. "I don't deserve that." I looked at him, my voice steady yet soft. "No, you don't. But you're still my father." He turned away in shame. "I was cruel to you, selfish. I thought we had time. I thought you'd always be there." A tear rolled down his cheek. "And when they told me I might not survive the surgery," he paused, his voice breaking, "all I could think about was how I left you alone." It's strange how a moment of vulnerability can rewrite years of resentment. Hearing him say those words didn't erase what happened, but it softened the silence within me a little. I stayed by his side that night, not because he deserved it, but because I needed to know I wasn't like him. I needed to know I could still care even after being the one no one came for. In the following days, I visited often. I handled the bills, spoke with doctors, and ensured he received the care he needed. Mom barely left his side, guilt etched deep in her face. She tried to speak several times, but words failed her, until one afternoon, as I was gathering my things to leave, she finally said it. "I thought I was teaching you independence," she whispered, "but I was really teaching you how to live without us." Her voice cracked. "And you learned too well." I looked at her, tears brimming in her eyes, and simply said, "I know." It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. As weeks went by, Dad started to recover. Grandpa also came to visit, sitting quietly in the corner with his cane. One day, after a checkup, he said something I'll never forget. "You did right, kiddo," he said. "You didn't let their choices make you bitter. You showed them what love really means." I smiled. "Do you think they'll change?" He chuckled softly. "Maybe, maybe not. But you did, and that's what matters." By the time Dad was discharged, our family dynamic had shifted completely. Mom stopped pretending that everything was perfect. Dad became quieter, more humble. He'd call me just to ask how I was doing, something he'd never done before. And me, I stopped carrying anger like armor, because I realized karma isn't always cruel. Sometimes it simply allows people to feel what you felt, so they can finally understand. A few months later, we were all at Grandpa's house for dinner. Our first real family meal since my accident. The atmosphere was lighter, somehow easier. Dad raised his glass, his hand trembling slightly. "I want to say something," he began, looking straight at me. "When you got hurt, I failed you. Not as a father, but as a human being. And when life gave me a taste of that fear, I finally understood. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Truly." The room fell silent. Tears blurred my vision as I whispered, "Thank you." And for the first time in years, we actually felt like a family. They say karma hits hard, but I've learned it doesn't always come to destroy. Sometimes it arrives quietly, not to punish, but to teach. Because if that night had never happened, if my parents had never turned away, I might never have learned to stand alone. And they might never have learned to reach back. Now, when I think about that message, can't this wait? We're busy right now. I don't feel anger anymore. Just gratitude. Because it was that moment, that heartbreak, that taught me exactly who I am and who I'll never be.